Hello, hello. We have got a very special guest with us here today. We've got Jake Dempsey from our professional services team. We're going to be going through a workflows presentation here. Okay, well, Jake, I am going to go ahead and leave the stage. I'll leave you to it for this workflows presentation. And then if you need any help or anything, just shout out to Marty or me and we'll jump on in.
No worries. We'll get some stuff rocking and rolling here. I'm really excited to sit and talk to you about something that I'm pretty passionate about. Well, I'm passionate about all of JobNimbus, but workflows. I'm glad you guys could join us today, and we'll check at different times for questions. We're actually going to do some hands-on, so I hope you've got kind of your eyeball on another screen or the capability to do it. If not, we'll be able to send you some of this information afterwards. Workflows are really the foundation of what we do here in JobNimbus. So that's really why I start out. I'm pretty excited and passionate about it. Is once we have those figured out, it really helps us to build everything on top of it. But a little bit about me. First of all, I want to make note that JobNimbus has a genius team. I'm not part of that. I'm certainly not a genius, but we have a great crew here to help you out as you're working through processes and struggling with some certain aspects of it. And we understand that JobNimbus has a lot of parts and pieces, and sometimes we can get stuck. So we do have people here that can help us, and I can tell you that the people on this screen, not me, but these guys, they're just amazing folks out there, and they know the system in and out, and they're some of the sharpest folks, and I'm proud to work with them. But a little bit about me. I've been all over doing a lot of things. I've been a contractor myself for 20 plus years, off and on as a general contractor up in the Seattle area. I have been with JobNimbus for 12 over 12 years. And that it would those of you who have been with us for a long time, you'd go, well, wait, that's a long time. It looks like it might be from the time it was founded. Yes, I'm one of the real originals here at JobNimbus. I've also spent some time at Eagle View as that got started, and I ran a company out of Colorado for a while that did exacting estimates for contractors and done all sorts of crazy things. And I even ran companies in Taiwan and China, so I have kind of a pretty wide breadth of insanity attached to the things that I've tackled in my life. And then in my spare time, I I build rifles. I'm a gun nut, so I build a lot of custom guns and do some cool stuff. So that's my spare time. But I want to specifically jump in and talk about these workflows and help us understand and refine what we've got, or change around some things on some simple concepts that are really important for us to drive by. First of all, understand again that workflows are the foundation of what we build off of. It's a and the reason we have workflows, the reason they're so important is because we're trying to build a repeatable process. Another point that's really important to understand is that they really are a map of the interactions that you have with your customer within your company ecosystem. And then the third piece that's really important to understand about workflows is if we use them properly, they build in accountability. When we build in accountability, it really helps with our profitability. So let's talk a little bit about each of those. We're going to run through these, talk about some of these really briefly, and then we're going to go into just actually doing it. Some fundamentals within JobNimbus and just best practices. So to talk about a repeatable process, this is in one of my dear friends, Jim Johnson, and he's just a fantastic guy, contractor coach pro. We once kind of butted heads on a podcast, and we're talking about the difference between an art and a science. And while we came to an agreement, what it was is that running a business is a science. It's something where we're trying to build something that we can do again and again. We're trying to build a cookie cutter process so that we can start to understand what's happening from moment to moment. And when we go through that process of understanding, um, how can we run our companies better based on this repeatable process? If everybody is doing A and B, then C should be a predictable outcome. Two things scale really well. The first thing is process. The second thing is chaos. And so what we want to make sure we're doing is scaling a process that works. The only way to get consistent results is to build a process. What that means is if we want to understand what's happening in our company from day to day, we have to have a process. We have to know that each customer is working through the same steps along the way so that we can figure out where things might be breaking down or things that we where there's things that we can improve. And having a process also allows us to tweak things. I mean, imagine having an engine, right, that we've built and we've made all these adjustments to it. And we start to run it, and all of a sudden, it's just not running optimally. Like it's backfiring, it's missing. We're having a few issues. We don't throw out the engine and start over, right? We start to diagnose the different adjustments that we make, and we don't adjust a million things at once, right? We might look at the spark plugs and say, "Hey, are they the right spark plugs? Are they gapped correctly?" Might look at a fuel mixture and we adjust that. But each time we make an adjustment, we run it again to see if that's going to improve the performance. And it's no different with a process. And the other thing is, if you can't measure it, it's really hard to manage. So it's really hard to figure out what the problems are in our company if we don't have a process that things are walking through step by step. The second part of this is that it's representative of the customer journey. And I have a lot of conversations with our customers about this. When we're building out a workflow, I really want us to make sure that we're looking at this from the customer point of view. In other words, if the customer were to call in and say, "Hey, where's my job?" And if you're looking at your JobNimbus on another screen right now, you may be able to identify this. And I'm looking at something, maybe I've got a follow-up status, and it's got a ton of stuff in there. Some of it with the running days, it could be 60, 90, 120 days in there. Well, if I'm to call up and say, "Hey, where's my job at?" And somebody goes, "Well, you're in follow-up." Well, I've been in follow-up for 120 days and nobody's followed up. That's when we have to decide, like, is our workflow, is our process, is all of that in line, and is it representative of what I want my customers to experience? So a great way to judge whether or not our workflows are effective is, would you be comfortable being a customer of your company? Would you be comfortable with the results and the knowledge that is being dispersed as we go through the process? So a couple of questions we need to ask as we think about that customer journey, that from phone call to final billing. Like, do we need it? Do we need every tiny thing that we do in the system as a status, or is that something we can work on as a task when it hits a specific status? And we'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute here. And again, call your own phone and ask about your job. If you were to call up and say, "Hey, where is my job?" and it falls under that, "Hey, it's in follow up," and nobody's followed up, right? Are you okay with that? Are you comfortable with the amount of information that you're getting from your own company, right? And this also ties to a lot of the other functions that we need, which has been a subject of other workshops, and that is the communication piece of it, tied into automations and tasks and different things that we can do in there. Without this framework, without this foundation, it makes it a little tougher to really hone our processes to make sure that we're communicating with the customer effectively. The third is accountability. I don't know if you can see this on your screen. I tried to blow it up. And this is just a couple of comments that I pulled randomly as I travel. Every once in a while, I'll grab something and throw it in a slide. And so I kind of have a list of these, and I just grabbed a couple of them. And so this is from poor Ed. We scheduled an appointment with oops, let's not show that, roofing, and we're given a 4-hour window when they would arrive, and so they didn't have a good experience. The other one was estimate and never check back, right? So we want to get out of that phase and do better. And so having that foundation allows us to make sure that while a customer is traveling through that journey, that they have that next level of accountability, that they have that next level of communication tied to automation, so that we have a baseline of communication back and forth. So again, Foundation of workflows allows us to say when a customer experiences this stage or this status in the workflow, we now trigger this other thing to happen to make sure that we have a bottom end communication ensured with them. The other piece here with accountability is everybody has a job. And so when we're looking at building out our workflows, everybody is responsible for their workflows, for their portion of the workflows, for whatever section they might be working in. And again, we'll jump into that deeper momentarily when we dive in and start talking through some best practices. The other thing about accountability is I think it's really important as we start looking at our workflows and the information we can gather from them and the increased management we can get from them is that it's not used as a sledgehammer. It's not one of those things where we want to utilize this with this mantra of the beatings will continue until morale improves. It doesn't help. What it is an opportunity for us to dig deeper into our processes again because it's a scientific process. If A and B equals C most of the time, and we see an outlier and everybody's doing the exact same thing, then something's messed up or somebody's not doing the same thing. And so really what it is a tool for us to understand who to help and where. Numbers don't lie. So they help us to figure out what's going on, when, where. So making sure that we utilize the workflow effectively gives us really good information on the back end for reporting. Visibility of what's going on in our jobs, like without that visibility, we can kind of like a 5-year-old hiding green peas on a dinner plate. We kind of move things around and pretend that we've done something with it when in fact we haven't really touched it much at all. When we have that visibility of what's happening in the customer's process and in their journey, we have the ability to see like, hey, are we taking care of this customer the right way? And it's not necessarily, again, not a finger pointing thing. It's just how do we continually build a process of continuous improvement so that we can make sure that that customer's having a good experience with us. The other thing that I wanted to bring up as just a point to consider is that software's, well, it's kind of dumb. What it is garbage in, garbage out. And so when we add accountability to it, we have to understand that software will do what we tell it to do. That's it. And so part of the solution, if you're struggling today, if you've gotten on this workshop and you've gone, hey, I am kind of struggling with my workflows and I want to understand them better. Just adjusting your workflow is only going to fix half of this. The other piece is that accountability piece. That means managing to it. That means making sure that people are working the process. And that's a culture thing. That's really hard for software to manage and force. That's really something where you have to be managing this on a regular basis. I often tell my customers when I'm on site, the one thing that's really important is that we don't have our weekly sales meetings once a month. Like we have to have those on a regular basis. We have to have accountability. We have to have a sit down. We have to have some time when we can connect with our fellow employees and hold each other accountable. And so managing that process is going to work by doing that. Briefly going over contacts versus jobs. I know this comes up a lot, and I wanted to bring this up. In the way that JobNimbus has started to adjust, if you've been with us for a long time, you've seen that we have contacts and jobs. The nomenclature just kind of pretend it's not there. Because a lot of times people go, well, I've contacted somebody, they've called in, and once I sell them, they become a job. Not in JobNimbus world. Our contacts in JobNimbus they're our customers. It's our Rolodex. It's our basic customer information. It's the who's paying for this job. And then jobs is the actual customer level engagement. What are we doing from the first call to final billing? What's happening on this? What does that mean? Well, that means that Jake could call up your company and say, "Hey, I've got a house that I want you to put a new roof on." And so we put Jake in as a contact and we put a job for Jake's new roof. Well, I may get that done and then I call you back and I say, "Hey, you did my roof and I have a rental property down the street. I'd like you to put a roof on that as well." Well, I don't have to put another contact in. The contact is already there. And then dropping it down, I just create another job. And so I've got my 123 Main Street job under Jake the contact, the billing address and all that. And then I've got a 234 Elm Street job under there. And it just runs through the process as a second job underneath it. So it's what we call a parent-child relationship on the technical side. I'm not that technical, but Jake can call up 15 different times, and only one single contact for Jake would go in, but Jake could have 15 jobs under his main contact. It helps clean things up so you don't have multiple contacts in the system and trying to chase that down. It's a lot easier. Some best practices before we dive into playing into workflows. If it exists, if it's a stage or sorry, a step or a status in our workflow, somebody has to be responsible for it. One of the questions that one of the guys that managed I worked for at one point managed me asked when I had this really great idea is that's a cool idea. Would you be willing to bet your paycheck on it? And I thought, well, it is a cool idea, but I don't know if I'm willing to bet my paycheck on it. So if we're going to put in a status in our workflow, that's the question to ask. Like if you want something there, are you willing to put your paycheck on it? If it's there under a specific category of like sales or production or billing, is sales willing to be responsible for that? Are they betting the bank on that one? The second part is just make sure it's short and sweet. As we build these out, we have to understand that people live in each of these statuses for a certain amount of time. If we just build a lot of places for people to move and consistently move them along, and you start counting up the number of statuses you have and the number of days somebody might be in the status, you could end up with a long sales cycle, which is not really what any of us want. The other thing is build it for next year, not now. What that means is if I understand that I start using JobNimbus or any CRM, but specifically JobNimbus, and my processes improve, my business gets better. What do I want to do when I grow, when I double? How do I want my organization set up? So don't build it for what you're doing now. Build it for best practices in the future. The other thing is to think about those automations. Again, is it a status or is it a some sort of a task we can tie to it? Is something going to live there for a while? Is there something that if I move it into that status that somebody might be need to be accountable for it for a while, and like is it going to sit there for 24 hours? Do I need to have multiple people do something while it's sitting there? Those types of things. Automations help us to do multiple things when it moves to a specific status. The other thing that's really important that people miss sometimes is they're designing their own workflows and putting them on the boards is the last step in one journey is the first step in the next. In other words, if I'm breaking out my processes into categories like sales, production, and billing, then my final sales process, so sign contract or whatever I want to call that, or manager approval or whatever, becomes the first stage in my production, and we'll do that here in just a minute. And then the other piece is just live in it, manage by it, talk in like it is the record. Like if there's any questions, always go back to this. Sometimes I tell people these are the divorce papers. Like you might want to work a side deal on outside of it, but when it comes down to it, and there's any question, any issues, the CRM is the record that's kept about that job. So make sure everybody's in it. So live in it, manage on it. Like if you're going to talk about a specific job, pull it up in the CRM and talk about the details within the job. Don't just holler across the room and say, "Hey, the Smith job, what's up with that one?" Yeah, it's not conducive to effectiveness when we don't live in it. So if everybody's ready, let's see. I know I've not used this a lot, so we're going to dive into the actual workflow here and start building one out using some best practices. So if you've gone into your to a job, one of your jobs, or into your JobNimbus system, and let's see, let's look here. You should be able to see my JobNimbus homepage. Where we're going to go is we're going to go up into our settings. So if you have admin access, what you'll see when you click into the upper left-hand corner in that circle next to the little happy bell there, is you'll see a drop down. If your drop down does not include this kind of stuff with team subscription settings, automation, that kind of stuff, you don't have admin access. I'm sorry, you'll have to talk to somebody in your organization. Where we want to go though is into our settings. I have a more modern version of our sidebar. You may not see this, but it's coming soon to you if you don't. And where we're going to head first is into our workflows and fields. And so let's start by talking about contacts real quick. With our contacts, this is again that Rolodex level. All we have up as a contact level, and I'm going to go in here and I've in settings, contact workflows, and I've gone over and this is our meatball menu. So if you hear anybody ever refer to a meatball menu, it's the goofiest name ever, but we use it so that when we say meatball menu, everybody understands what we're talking about. We're going to hit edit, and that gives us the list. Now this back here is protected in our settings, and this is where we set up all our workflows. They're displayed up front in our boards, but in the back end is where we're looking at this stuff. So our first one is new. And this is where people just come in and we put them in. So they take the phone call, you type in their name, and they're going to drop into our new category. Our next category to build is an active category. This particular category, we would connect to QuickBooks. Now, this is not something that we're going to have to move. Those are all done in our automations. Those, if you don't have your QuickBooks connected to JobNimbus, it's possible. Call support, call the Genius team, connect with them. They'll get you taken care of, and you can have that connected. Within the automations, we will build something that will automatically move, when appropriate, this contact into QuickBooks. But when we move something from new to active in there, it would connect to QuickBooks. And then we have inactive, and that is we're not working with them, they never made it, whatever. So those are the three that we want to have here. That's it. Now we don't put those into boards at all. They just stay and in the contact workflows in the back end. And then when we create a contact, it will pop up as an option to put them in as a contact. Where we're headed next is our job workflows. Within job workflows, and we're just going to kind of pretend that retail is not here. So we will call this retail test. This is where we start to talk about how we are working through our customer journey. Again, it's a little repetitive as we discuss it, but it's something to understand. We're taking our customers from a phone call in to our final billing, and that happens at the job level. We disposition everything at the job level. They don't become a job eventually. They start as a contact with a job immediately added to them, and so we want to document that customer journey. And the cool thing about JobNimbus is it's totally customizable. And so when you go in, we don't need to clone this. We're going to just add our own workflow. One of those qualifications that we've got is who can see this? Well, this is only going to be team members that are sales reps or assignees or admin level. In other words, on this particular level, I'm saying if Jake calls in and I have two different salespeople, only the salesperson that's assigned or admin that's assigned to the job is going to be able to see this. The other salesperson would not be able to see it. Stages are really important because they will tie into our reporting on the back end, our insights and other things. So they will be valuable to us. What we want to make sure that we are doing though is we want to use whatever you guys use. Don't follow what I do. If you have a phone call coming in and you call that a prospect, an opportunity, a lead, whatever, you can go in and you start with this and you say, this is my lead. And I'm not going to send a lead to QuickBooks. I don't want a lead to go into QuickBooks because they haven't been sold. I don't want to muddy up my QuickBooks. So maybe you want to turn that QuickBooks off. And then as we move forward, we're going to move this to a lead stage. Don't worry about the stage so much. This has more to do with our reporting when we're saying, well, how long did it take to get from lead to sign contract? We're more focused on the status name. And so if I, again, customer journey, customer calls in, they become a lead. My first, maybe my process internally is the front desk is going to take that customer and they're going to set up an appointment. And so my next status is really appointment scheduled. And that is going to still be a lead. I haven't done anything with that customer yet, and I'm not sending them to QuickBooks. They haven't signed anything. They're not a customer yet. And so lead comes in. The cool thing about this, remember, foundation that we've built is I can now tie an automation to lead and say, when a lead is created, send them a welcome email that tells them a little bit more about our company. When I have an appointment scheduled, go ahead and send them an email with information on that appointment. So all of these statuses can tie automations to them. So after I've gone out and I've looked at that appointment, I might bring that thing back and I'm going to do some estimating on that. Now, with our cool new NSE stuff that we've got in JobNimbus, you could do something right on site and try to sell it there. But let's just say they asked for something weird that we didn't normally have. And so we're actually going to estimate this in-house. We need to go back and do some work. So what I've got now is I'm in estimating. Great thing that I can do is I don't have to have like estimating 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, or anything like that. I can tie something that says, hey, if it's sitting in estimating for more than 24 hours, send a task to the salesperson to get it finished. Once my estimate is done, I take it out to the customer. I send it via email, whatever my process is, and I might have an estimate out with the customer. So I'm still in estimating. It's still kind of grinding away. I'm not sending it to QuickBooks still because it's just an estimate the customer's sitting on, but this means they're sitting on it. Now, this is where I don't necessarily put any follow-up 1, follow-up 2, follow-up 3. My follow-up is done based off of the amount of time that my customer is sitting in this status of estimate out. So I go out, I hand them something, I come back and I'm moving on to the next customer doing some things. I can auto email the customer out of 2 days because I can define that if that customer is sitting an estimate out for 2 days, auto send an email to say, do you have any questions? At 5 days, I can send a text. In case you didn't get my email, do you have any questions? At 7 days, I can send an automation that would task the salesperson to say, hey, follow up with the customer, call them and put results in the CRM, as to what your phone call is. The cool thing about this is we know our salespeople are really busy. We know they're super buried. And so we can tie some automation so that at base level, we know we have communication with the customer. We've paid for the lead. The industry standard, we could probably just glue $350 to the cost of an acquisition for a lead. And so we want to make sure that we've tied that to that customer and we get our full benefit of investment out. So we can communicate and we can do that several different times: email, text, phone call, email, text, phone call, email. And then I might say, hey, you know what, if they're still in here after 32 days, just put them in like a rehash bucket in a lost category. And then we can actually do something over there where after a month or so, we just go, hey, we still care, but we don't want to bug you forever. What I do at this point is I will put an active hold. This is a very dangerous one to put in because it's still in estimating. This would be like, I have to have parameters on it. We got rules for this, but my active hold that I put in is I've contacted the customer. They have agreed that they're going to sign, but they're on a cruise. They have to get some finances together, but they've agreed within the next 7 to 14 days that they are going to sign this and move forward. So I'm going to put them into active hold so that I don't keep sending them emails. Do you have any questions? Do you have any questions? Or you're like, oh, I told you I'm fine. I just got to get this stuff together. Again, this is totally subjective and whatever your customer journey is. But if I'm in active hold, somebody owns this status. And so what that means to me is that if it's sitting there for X number of days, I'm going to tell the salesperson they better update these things. If it's sitting there for 14 days, guess what? I'm talking to somebody's manager. So really important that we have rules for everything because we're not collecting people. That's not our goal here. And I know that's kind of a scary thought, but if we're communicating with them throughout the process with automations and we follow this process, we can comfortably give up the people that aren't going to move forward, because we know through experience that if they haven't connected with us within X number of days, they're just not going to really, like, the chances are pretty low. Does it mean we give up on them? No, but we don't want them in our face, and so we move them on. Um, Active hold moves to signed contract, maybe. Again, this is all based on what you guys do in house. You may have in your office somebody that goes in and you want to have like estimate out and active hold and then sign contract and then manager approval before. That's fine. Again, as long as they own it. But this is where we want to trigger it as sold. So now with our stages over here, we have plugged in information to Insights. So we've collected a date on when we've created that lead. We've signed that contract and got it into our sold status. So we know our lead to sold time. Again, our focus being on the statuses. This just gives us a good idea of what's going on in our processes for reporting. And this is also where we trigger a QuickBooks send. This also ties to our automation of when a signed contract comes into the system and it's moved to sold. Also move that contact from new to active up at the contact level and send this information at the job level into QuickBooks as well. So we have everything stays very clean, and the only thing that would go into QuickBooks is a signed contract. A lot less junk floating around in there. All right. So now we're going to move into our production piece. So we might have a production review, and I'm gonna start speeding up just a little bit, just because this is just kind of the same thing over and over again. But understanding where we're at gets us to here. So production review, send it to QuickBooks. So our signed contract on the front end will be the last stage. This is basically going to become the leads for our production review. In that process, we might be getting some of our permits that we might get, California. Well, no, California's got crazy stuff. Florida, notice of commencements, different things that have to happen there. Materials ordered. And you'll notice at this point, what I'm doing is I am leaving send to QuickBooks on. I'm not actually sending things to QuickBooks at this point, but what I'm doing is I'm just reaching out and kind of shooting a signal going, hey, just check and see if there's anything new there or new here that we need to talk back and forth about. Then job ready, in production. Again, leaving that QuickBooks ping on just to go, hey, anything changed? Any weird change orders? Any adjustments made? Anything we need to connect and just see if there's a change? Job ready, job in progress, and I'm still in my production phase, right? Owned by production. Then I might come in and sometimes I'll put a secondary trades in. What this allows me to do at this level is to say, hey, my roof is done and I don't want people dropping shingles on people's heads. They might be doing some siding or gutters or something, but that piece is done. And I have one more trade to push through or a couple more trades to finish up before I'm actually done with this. This is a great opportunity after that's completed to move it to a walkthrough status, which would allow us to send some emails out to the customer and to send some internal tasks for somebody to schedule a walkthrough with the customer. And then it can hang out and walk through if there's a punch list or something that needs done, and they can just get it done. We can communicate back and forth via notes. And then I have my install complete, and that's still in my production, and then I'm sending it to QuickBooks. Now, once I've got all of this broken up here, my install is complete. I'm done with my production. The cool thing is I'm starting to break apart responsibilities here. Now, this is, if you're a small company, this may be a little advanced. This may be way more than you need, and that's okay. You can scale this way back. You just have to understand and feel out what you need for your company. As you're talking like a medium-sized, larger company, you start to build these processes. I've got some that are really large and they've got a pre-production that's really big because they have to do permitting and they have to do all these different things, a lot of HOAs in the area. And so those things all take time. And that's fine if that's what your company needs. But once that install is complete, we're sending out a final invoice. let's see if I can spell here, and I'm going into my ARs, right? So what this is doing is this is pushing here and saying once this install is complete, I now have a final invoice that goes out of to the customer. Now, this is my best practice, and this is just from a lot of working with customers, my own personal experience. I don't move it around much from here. I like a final invoice to be in here, and then I want the timer to tick. Mainly because every time we move it to a new status, it's going to reset the amount of time that it's in there that we have that visibility for. And so I just want to drop it into final invoice, knowing that the invoice is out and I'm waiting for payment. That allows me to do 10 days, please pay me. 15 days, I'm not a bank, pay me. And at 20 days, I'm going, hey, I have to protect my investment in time and materials in your job. So please pay me or I'm going to have to lien. And then at 30 days, I'm starting the lien process. And that's just an easy way to track it. We know where we're at with that stuff. And then I might have, oh, let's go into like a closeout. And this is where, okay, everything's done. And I'm going to send out all of my warranty information. I'm going to, work on my commissions for the salespeople. I'm going to get everything sorted out. And then I'm going to be done with it. Now, here is a little bit of a funky, cool trick that I do. Then once I'm done, I'm paid and closed. And that's my completed. And I'm archiving that one. So that's going to go into archive. But when you go, Jake, you just said this to not make it longer. Well, I get it, but that's okay. I'm going to show you a neat little trick, and you can only do this with paid and closed. There's one other, but we're going to stick it with paid and closed. I'm going to do a paid and happy. And I'm going to put this into my completed, archived, and my send to QuickBooks. Now, this is, oh my goodness, this was miserable. Please call another company next time. This was, hey, it was awesome. Would you like to give us a review? So when we drop it into there, that gives us that opportunity. And then, of course, we work on our lost. And you could have any number of reasons, but today we're just going to put a lost. Lost, archive it, send to QuickBooks. There's some cool different things we can do in Lost, and that's kind of an advanced thing. But you can connect some automations to Lost that would help you to reach out and do kind of a rehash, that kind of stuff. So you can categorize these. We'll save that for another time. All right, so we're going to cruise through this here because we've now built a really simple, nice process for our retail customer. Insurance really doesn't change too much on the back end, but on the front end, we've got our lead appointment scheduled. Maybe we've got a contingency signed instead of estimating, and then an appointment with the adjuster. And then we're waiting on a scope, and then so it's going to be a little bit longer because we may have to do some supplementing and things like that. So it's going to adjust here. But once we have that signed contract for insurance, that final build contract where they pick their colors and stuff like that, still just rolls into production review, goes through the same process with the exception of once it's we may throw in something down here for like a back end supplement or something like that. But I want to try and mirror it the best I can because that allows me on the front end to do some cool stuff in my boards. So what we did on the front end when we're talking about our boards, and we'll look at those just a second here, is we built that process. We built from phone call to final billing in here. Now what we do is we take that up to, let's close that out, and we take it into our jobs boards. So I have this already set up in here, but what I want to show you real quick is how we would do that. So if you go up into your jobs and we hit create a board, we are going to call this our sales board. We are going to make it whatever color we want. We're based on the jobs there, and then we're going to let all team members see it. We're going to take the name of that customer, and the system will dictate that. And then we have some other systems that are supportive of this. And these are custom fields that we can create upon job creation or job update that we can fill out that will also help us. So in this particular case, I want to see where the address is. And I want to see where the city is. And I also want to maybe see something, like a work type or something in there. So that would help. then I'm going to add to my list. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go find my retail test that I did, and I'm going to put in lead. And then I'm going to go in my retail test here, and I'm going to put in my appointment scheduled. We're not rebuilding anything. We're just taking that stuff from the back end. And the reason I'm not using all in this particular case is because I only want my retail stuff to show up on this particular board. So my retail test goes into estimating, and it goes much faster if you spell retail. I'm going to drop down in my retail test, estimate out, and then we'll do my retail test down here of active hold, and my retail test of signed contract. Now, in here as well, what we're going to add is down at the bottom of our retail test, we have our lost. This is where we're going to lose the job more often than not. And so we're just going to have that here for it to go into. So now if we save that board, then we have this signed contract. So here's our sales board. Here's our signed contract. And what I would do now is I'm going to go in and go into my jobs boards here, and create a board. And I will call this new one prod for production. Again, all team members, we can decide what we want to show, address, job city, not there. Let's get rid of this. Now, what these are, these weird little things that you're seeing, these are like HTML fields. I don't know what it stands for. I'm not that smart, but what it is we're grabbing that information universally and plugging it in here. And then if we wanted to put a custom work type field in, we can, and then we add the list. Now, previous, I said that our final stage in sales needs to be the leads in here. And so when I'm looking in here and I go to my retail test, the way that moves over is in signed contract. Come on, you can do it. And then we continue on and on down the road. And so what happens is whatever shows up in sales will also show up at the same exact time into signed contract. And then when it gets moved to the next status, then we're able to move it through. All right, so I'm gonna kind of forego filling out all the other ones because they're kind of already set up in here. I'm actually gonna sneak down here and I'm gonna ditch this guy, and I'm gonna delete it just so for ease of use and not bugging me. And the other thing in that production board is all things would show. So let's talk real quick about what this looks like. I'm gonna add a job. And I'm going to say Bill is my contact. His last name, we'll just call him Bilson. Get a mobile number in there. Put his name, Bill at bill.com. And I'm going to scroll down. I'm going to grab this add address piece. Say it's 123 Main and Middleton, Idaho. No, let's get here. Idaho. 83644, and you're welcome. I'm not at 123 Main, but I do live in Idaho. And so I've added the Bill as a customer. He's now in the system. And so remember, we're talking Rolodex, main billing address and everything. That's where Bill is at. And then I'm saying, okay, all this information is correct. And I'm going to move forward to create a job. It's just going to carry that information directly over. We're going to go to the next stage and we're going to go, okay, so what do we want to do? Right now, my job name is based off of the address. I can change that in the back end so that it shows up differently. This is going to be a retail, we're just going to pretend that's retail test, same thing. Sales rep is going to be Jake, the lead source, wherever that came from. I don't have to assign it to anybody, but I want to put in that this is a residential one just so that I have that information. And if I want, I can add additional fields. This custom field was created in the settings and forced on intake. You have that option to adjust that. I'm going to save that job, and it's going to create both Bill, the contact, and the job. We know we're in a job because we have a wrench and a screwdriver. And then my first thing I'm going to do that ties to all of those automations is I'm going to click on my job task. I'm going to add a task, and that is going to be my first appointment, which I can build automations around. We're not here for automation, so that's a whole nother conversation. But when we go back into our jobs, I now have my 123 Main Street. It's a retail residential, and it's in Middleton, and there's the cell phone number, and it's been here for 0 days. So I can move it through here, and I can walk it through the whole process here until it gets to signed contract. Once it gets to signed contract, then it shows up in my production board, and then I move it into my production review. Now, if I take it out of signed contract into production review, then I go back into my retail sales where Bill once was. He's no longer here. So when I mentioned earlier that we're building for a year from now, I'm saying, I think my company's going to be big enough. I'm going to have a couple salespeople, a sales manager. I'm going to have a production manager. So I want sales to own sales and production to own production. Sometimes you're just content with being a certain size, and you don't need to. You can make this all one long thing. But with a growth in mind, this is how I would normally move it from a sales to production to billing. So same concept as we move it through the process here, and get it over to our job complete. Then what that does is in our billing, it shows up in job complete. And same concept, as soon as we move it into this final invoice, it's off of the page for production, close out, and then we move it into our paid and closed. Now, what I did in paid and closed, and I'll review this really quick for everybody, is I created, and I'm just going to come in here and edit this, is I snuck in, and instead of having a paid and closed with paid and closed and paid and happy, I stacked them. Now, this is the only time you want to do this. You really don't want to do it in many other cases because you really can kind of lose track of things. This is an endpoint for these guys, and so I don't necessarily want to have multiple extra buckets. And so I just slid 2 of them, and I called it paid and closed. And so now if I cancel out of here and go back into my billing board, when I take Jake to paid and closed, I can pick or Bill, I can go into paid and closed or paid and happy. Paid and closed, again, like, please never call me again. And paid and happy is, hey, you're awesome. I'd like you to give us a review for Google. And they're not gone. They're just archived. So they're not stuffed in our face. You see them at any time. And that is how to build a workflow. That's a really effective way. And this combined with automations is a really effective way to do a lot of the stuff that you may have traditionally thought, well, in my sales process, I want to have like a follow-up board, where it's like, do this, do this, do this. We don't need one. Now that we've got retail sales operating and we have that accountability, when we move it into an estimate sent out, then it's there. There's no scary things to worry about and wonder if somebody's following up or not, because the system can follow up. The system can alert you as to what's going on. So there's a lot of cool things that happen.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Jake. Hey, Jake.
Hey.
Yeah, thanks. Just reiterate what Jake said. Thank you guys so much for joining in today and taking part of this. This was a master class, I would call it, in workflows in JobNimbus. So, okay, see you guys next time.